Welcome back to our study called The Aftermath of Sin, and we're looking at chapter 19 of the book of Genesis. And actually we're finishing up this book, and we got one more story left in this chapter to take apart, to learn from. And today I titled this section The Messes We Make, because this is kind of where Lot is at. He's made a mess. And we're just going to focus in on verse 30 today. So take a look at that. And let's dive in, okay? First, let's talk about the damage of fear. Fear causes a lot of damage. And let's see how this affects Lot here, our friend Lot. So when we last left our friend Lot here, he was in Zoar. He was dragged from the city of Sodom to safety. Lot and his daughters were saved from the destruction, but that was in verse 29. Now, we are in verse 30. And where do we find Lot now? He's living in the hills in a cave. He went to the hills country, because remember, that's what the angels told him to go. That's where they first told him to go to, is you need to run to the hill country. And he's like, no, I want to go to Zoar, because it's closer, it's just a small city, it's cool, it'll be all right, just let me go there. And the angels were gracious enough to be like, yeah, okay. And so he goes there. But where is he at now? Now he's made it to the hills. But what is he doing? He's living in a cave with his two daughters. So this is kind of, he's got himself here. Remember that he struck that deal. He struck a bargain, really, with the angels. He was like, hey, come on, man. Just let me go to the small city. It's just a small one, okay? It's a little city. It's nothing. I can go there and be safe, right? Yeah, so he was striking a bargain. God mercifully consents. Everything's cool. Lot is living now in a cave in the hills. But what happened, Lot? What's going on? Why in verse 29, you're living in Zoar. You go to Zoar for safety and say, yeah, God says you'll be safe there. And now he's living in the hill country in a cave. What is going on here? Why are you there, Lot? Well, we're told he was afraid. Lot was afraid, and he moved. That's what caused him to move. Fear. Let me say one thing right here. If you're moving because of fear, it's better to be, it better be the fear of God that's causing you to move. If it's not the fear of God, you got a problem. If it's the fear of God that has caused you to go, it's because you're following God that you're moving, then that's a good move. But I don't think this is motivating Lot. It's not the fear of God. There's a fear of something else going on here. It might be the fear of God, but it might be the wrong kind of fear. He might be afraid of God. Like, this dude just took out Sodom and Gomorrah. I don't know what God's going to do next. He might be taking out me. He might take out Zoar finally. God might be like, hey, I'll just take this thing out anyway. Who knows what he's thinking. There's some ungodly fear here. It's not faith that is leading Lot down this path. Fear is making a mess of his life. It's making a mess. So he's moved, he's living in this cave, he's hiding because of fear. We don't know what the fear is. It doesn't specifically say what fear. There's speculations out there, commentaries I've read. People speculated upon what kind of fear it was. What was he afraid? Was he afraid of God? Was he afraid of the people of Zoar? Who knows? But it's a fear that shouldn't be there, right? God said he'd be safe. So what is he afraid of? Why is he moving because he's afraid? That doesn't make any sense. So that's the problem. But when you make a mess of your life, things usually get messier. So the messes get messier. Remember where Lot was, where he's come from? He started out leaving Ur with his uncle Abraham to sojourn in the land of Canaan, right? That's where he went. He left Ur and went with Lot, or with Abraham. And he stayed with Abraham as he moved about, and Abraham was publicly worshiping God, and Lot was still there. And as Abraham sojourned in Egypt, Lot was there. As he returned back to Canaan, Lot was there. All great choices on Lot's behalf. He was sticking with the man of God, with Abraham. But then came the turning point in his life, when Abraham suggested that they split apart, and Lot separated from Abraham. Lot looked with his eyes. He looked up and saw, look at this fertile valley near Sodom and Gomorrah. That was a bad choice. Then he moves into Sodom. And he gets captured when the kings come pillage the city. And Abraham rescues him. Again, what in the world? Here you have another choice. Do you go back to Sodom? Or do you go and hang out with Abraham? He chooses to go back to Sodom. Another bad choice, right? Stay with Abraham. Come on, man. But he goes back to the city, ends up sitting in the city gate. So now he's not just a guy hanging out, sojourning, really. Now he's kind of accepted by them. That's a horrible choice. Judgment falls on the city, and he doesn't run, right? God says, I'm going to destroy the city. And he doesn't take off and start running. Like, what are you doing, man? You got to go. He finally has to get dragged from the city and then feels it's okay to bargain on how he's saved. Another horrible choice. And now he leaves the city after God has promised him safety in Zoar. To live in a cave from a rich man living with his uncle, having so much stuff that he has to, they have to figure out what they're going to do to support all their lands. There's that infighting amongst their shepherds. They have to figure out what they're going to do. But it's like one bad choice after another. You feel for the guy. The Bible tells us he was a righteous man, but it's like, man, come on, Lot. God said he'd be safe there in Zoar. Just stay there. Get your daughters married. Create a life for them. Start over. The life of Sodom is over. Now start a new life in Zoar. But what is he doing living in the cave? What a mess Lot has created. But unfortunately, he's not done with it. he's got some more bad choices coming up. And so you can see this spiral of just one bad choice after another. It's going down this evil path, and it's like, man, stop! Don't do it. You just wish you could yell at Lot, don't do that. But there's a lot of people that we try to do that, and and some of us were going down those paths, and God sent someone into our life to stop us from going down the path that we were headed, and that's amazing. That's a blessing from God. But he doesn't always do that, because that's not always what we want, And so God does that for some people, how he rescues them from all these bad choices, just one after another, just making a mess and then making it messier by the dumb things we do. So God is gracious, though. Lot is a righteous man. He was vexed, remember, in his soul, living in Sodom, and he's still struggling, man. Still struggling. So think about Lot this week. Think about him, and just the one bad choice after another, and then think about your own life. It gives us a pause to think, okay, I need to examine my own life, because where am I headed with these choices? I'm making choices all the time. But are they good choices? Are they choices based on my fear of God, or is it choices based on the fear of man, or the wrong kind of fear of God, that I'm afraid that he's some kind of tyrannical, meanie who's going to, zap me with a lightning bolt or something? Or am I viewing God in the right way? Or is it something else that I'm afraid of that's driving me to do the things I'm doing? So we need to examine our hearts to make sure that we're not doing that. And we need to make sure that we're not following the path of Lot here, but we're choosing to live by faith like Abraham was. So come back next time. We'll take a look at the next couple of verses.